The gun pressed cold against her forehead. 23 iron wolves surrounded Emma Brennan, 17 years old, wearing the enemy patch that had gotten men buried alive in this territory. Her father's blood was barely dry in the ground. His killers stood in this room, and she just told their president that everything they believed for 15 years was a lie, that they'd been murdering the wrong men, destroying the wrong brotherhood, fighting a war that one corrupt sheriff invented to hide his crimes. Hammer's finger tightened on the trigger. Emma didn't blink. The truth was worth dying for. Her father had proved that. Subscribe to our channel and follow Emma's story to the very end. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Emma's hands were covered in dust and her father's secrets. The floorboard came up easy. Too easy. Like Ghost Brennan had lifted it 1,000 times before wearing the wood smooth with years of hidden visits. She pulled out the metal box and her throat closed up. "What were you hiding, Dad?" The lock was old. She tried her birthday backwards, the combination he'd made her memorize when she was 12. Click. The lid opened. Emma stopped breathing. A sealed envelope yellowed with age, military dog tags, a burner phone, and a patched steel Ravens MC. The enemy. The men her father's old club had been killing for 15 years. Her hands moved on their own, reaching for the envelope. Ghost's handwriting, shaky, written in his final days. For Victor Hammer Stone, Iron Wolves MC President, deliver personally. A smaller note fell out, her name on the front. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for all of it. The lies, the secrets, everything I couldn't tell you. The war between the clubs was built on a lie. I have proof. Deliver the envelope to Hammer. Wear the patch. He needs to see you came in peace. Trust only Hammer and your Uncle Daniel. No one else. Rachel is alive. I love you, Dad. Mama read it again. Rachel, Aunt Rachel. Dead in a car crash when Emma was 2. Rachel is alive. What the hell, Dad? She grabbed the burner phone, powered it on, password screen. Her birthday, nothing. Mom's birthday, nothing. The day her parents got married, unlocked. Audio files, dozens of them. Photos, bank records, police reports stamped classified. Emma hit play on the first recording. A man's voice, not her father's. Older, used to power. Need 5 of them taken out. Make it look like Ghost's crew. That'll split them for good. Second voice, Stone'll retaliate. That's the point. Keep them killing each other. They're too busy to see what's right under their noses. Emma's finger hovered over the screen. She knew that voice. Everyone in Summit County knew that voice. Sheriff Frank Morrison. The phone almost slipped from her hands. Dad, what did you find? Time. 3 hours later, Emma knew everything. Every recording, every photo, every bank statement tracking payments to hired killers. Her father hadn't died of a heart attack. Her father had been murdered. And the man who ordered it was the most powerful lawman in 3 counties. The front door opened downstairs. Emma, you home, Mom. Back from her shift, Emma shoved everything into her backpack. Hands steady now, mind clear. In my room, Carolyn Brennan appeared in the doorway, still in her scrubs. Dark circles under her eyes. She'd aged 10 years in the 3 weeks since the funeral. You okay, honey? You look pale. Just tired. Going through Dad's stuff. Yeah. Her mother crossed the room, wrapped her arms around Emma. She smelled like hospital soap and exhaustion. He loved you so much, baby. More than anything. I must put it in on Emma hugged back, tight. Maybe the last time she'd be able to do this for a while. I know, Mom. I'm gonna shower and crash. Early shift tomorrow. Okay. Her mother kissed her forehead and left. Emma waited until she heard the water running. Then she grabbed her keys. Wayne. The Forge sat on the edge of town like a warning. Emma parked 3 blocks away, just like her father's notes said. The steel Ravens patch was in her pocket. She pulled it out, stared at it. Her father had worn this patch once. Before the split. Before Pine Valley. Before 47 men died in a war that was never supposed to happen. She fixed it to her jacket. The weight changed everything. Okay, Dad, let's see what you started. The doorman was a mountain with tattoos, 6'5", arms like tree trunks, eyes that had seen men die and hadn't blinked. Wrong neighborhood, little girl. Emma kept walking toward him. I need to see Victor Stone. Turn around. Walk away. Don't come back. Tell him Ghost Brennan's daughter has a message. Tell him it's about Pine Valley. The big man's hand shot out, grabbed her arm, squeezed hard enough to bruise. You say that name again? I'll break your jaw. Emma didn't flinch. My father's dead, 3 weeks in the ground. He spent 15 years putting something together for Stone, and I'm not leaving until I deliver it. So either let me in or explain to your president why you turned away the one thing that could end this war. Tank, that's what his vest said, stared at her. 10 seconds, 20. His grip loosened. Your funeral, kid. He pushed open the door. Emma walked into darkness. 23 men turned to look at her. 23 hands moved toward weapons. Emma felt it like a physical wave, the hatred, the violence barely contained the 15 years of bloodshed hanging in the air like smoke. She kept walking. The Iron Wolves clubhouse smelled like beer and old leather and death. Pool tables on the left, bar on the right. And in the back corner, surrounded by men who'd killed for him, sat Victor Hammer Stone, gray beard streaked with white, face like carved stone, eyes that had ordered men buried and never lost a minute's sleep. A heavy man stepped into her path, shaved head, sergeant-at-arms patch, razor on his vest. The hell you think you're doing wearing those colors in here, delivering a message? Only message you're delivering is a body bag. Razor, Hammer's voice cut across the room. Quiet, absolute. Move. Razor's jaw clenched. He didn't move. Now. The sergeant stepped aside. Slowly, eyes never leaving Emma. She walked the last 10 feet alone. Hammer watched her approach. His expression gave nothing away. Brave or stupid, haven't decided which. My father said you'd know the difference. Your father, Hammer leaned forward. Ghost Brennan, man who killed 5 of my brothers on Pine Valley Road. Man I've been trying to bury for 15 years. He didn't do it. Everyone says that. Everyone doesn't have proof. Emma pulled the envelope from her jacket, placed it on the table. He spent 15 years gathering this. Died before he could bring it to you himself. Asked me to finish what he started. Hammer looked at the envelope. Didn't touch it. Why would Ghost send his daughter into enemy territory? Why not mail it? Leave it somewhere. Because he said you needed to look me in the eye. He said you'd know I wasn't lying. And how would I know that? Because I have his eyes, and you saved his life twice in the desert. He said, brothers, don't forget. Something shifted in Hammer's face. Just for a second. Then it was gone. He reached into his cut, pulled out an old photograph, slid it across the table. 2 young soldiers in desert camo, arms around each other, grinning like the world couldn't touch them. Desert Storm, before any of this, before the clubs, before the blood. Hammer's voice was different now, quieter. Your father took a bullet for me outside Basra. I held his guts in while the medics worked. He looked me in the eye and said, brothers protect brothers. Then he passed out, and I thought he was dead. Emma touched the photograph. Her father looked so young, so happy. He never talked about the war. Not to me. Men like us don't. Too much to say, no words big enough to hold it. Hammer picked up the envelope. What's in here? The truth about Pine Valley, about who really killed your men, about why. And who would that be? Sheriff Frank Morrison. The room went dead silent. Hammer's eyes locked onto hers. That's a dangerous name to throw around. It's not a name, it's a fact. Listen to the recordings. Look at the bank statements. My father documented everything. Why would Morrison want my men dead? Because he needed you at war. Both clubs killing each other, too busy to notice he was running drugs through your territory. 15 years of cover, 47 dead brothers, all so one man could get rich. Hammer's hand tightened on the envelope. If this is true, it's true. If this is true, your father died for nothing. I spent 15 years hating a man who was trying to save us all. He didn't die for nothing. Emma leaned forward. He died so I could finish it. So are you going to open that envelope, or are we going to keep talking? Ikito. Hammer sent everyone out. Everyone except an older man with a white beard and kind eyes. Doc, they called him. He stood by the back door like a guardian. Hammer broke the seal on the envelope. Emma watched his face as he read, page after page of her father's handwriting. First page. His expression didn't change. Second page. His jaw tightened. Third page. His hands started shaking. Fourth page. He stopped reading, just stared at the paper like it might burst into flames. Doc, come here. The older man crossed the room, took the letter, read. His face went white. Good God. Play the recordings, Hammer said. His voice sounded like broken glass. Emma handed him the phone, showed him how to access the files. Morrison's voice filled the room. Need 5 of them taken out. Make it look like Ghost's crew. Another recording. Keeping them at war is perfect. They're too busy killing each other to see anything. Another recording. Recent. Emma recognized the date 2 months before her father died. Brennan's asking questions again. About Pine Valley, about Rachel. We need to arrange an accident before he talks to Stone. The recording ended. Hammer sat motionless. 15 years. His voice cracked. 15 goddamn years. I buried friends. I ordered hits. I destroyed a brotherhood that meant everything to me. And all of it because Frank Morrison wanted to run drugs. There's more, Emma said. More about Rachel. Hammer's head snapped up. What do you know about Rachel? She was your wife, my father's sister. She disappeared 15 years ago. Everyone said she died. Morrison told me Ghost took her, hid her somewhere, used her as leverage. Hammer's voice broke. I spent 15 years believing my best friend kidnapped my wife. Morrison lied. Emma pulled out the photograph, the one from the bottom of the box. This was taken 3 years after she disappeared. A woman, older than her wedding photos, thinner, sadder, but alive, standing next to Frank Morrison. Hammer took the photograph. His whole body went rigid. She's alive. My father thought Morrison was keeping her somewhere. Insurance to make sure Dad never talked. Where? I don't know, but Dad was trying to find her when he died. He was close. That's why Morrison killed him. Hammer stood up so fast his chair crashed to the floor. Doc, I heard. The older man was already moving. I'll get the officers. Chapel, 5 minutes. No phones, no prospects, nobody in or out until I say. Doc disappeared through the back door. Hammer turned to Emma. His eyes were wet. She hadn't expected that. Your father, Ghost, he knew all this for years, and he couldn't say anything because Morrison had Rachel, and if Dad talked, she died. So he stayed silent, let me hate him, let the whole world think he was a murderer just to keep my wife alive. That's who he was. Hammer picked up the photograph of Rachel, stared at it like a man seeing a ghost. I'm going to kill Frank Morrison. No, Emma said. We're going to bury him. Legal, public, the way my father wanted. He didn't spend 15 years building a case just so you could put a bullet in Morrison and go to prison. You sound just like him. I'll take that as a compliment, Sio. The chapel filled with Iron Wolves officers. Razor, Doc, 4 others Emma didn't recognize. Hard men with hard eyes and 15 years of blood on their hands. Hammer played the recordings, nobody moved. When it was over, Razor spoke first. It's fake, has to be. Bank records, Hammer replied. Payments traced directly to Morrison. Shell companies, offshore accounts. The same accounts that paid the hitmen who did Pine Valley. Why would Morrison, drugs, territory, money? Take your pick. Doc's voice was tired. We've been Morrison's personal cover story for 15 years. 2 clubs killing each other while he got rich. Bull, dough. It's real Razor. Hammer's voice left no room for argument. Ghost spent 15 years gathering this. He died for it. And if you can't see that, you're blind. Razor shut up. A younger officer raised his hand. What about the girl she's wearing enemy colors? She's Ghost's daughter. She walked in here alone knowing we could kill her just to deliver her father's message. That takes more guts than most of you have ever shown. The room went quiet. What do? Doc asked. We verify everything. Then we take it to the feds, someone outside Morrison's pocket. And Rachel, Hammer's jaw tightened. First, we secure the evidence. Then we find my wife. The chapel door burst open. A young prospect stood there, face white with fear. Cops outside, 6 cars. Morrison's with them. Everything happened fast. Hammer shoved the evidence into his cut. Doc Tunnel, get her out, now. What tunnel? Emma demanded. Doc grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the storage closet. Prohibition days, runs 3 blocks underground. Move. The evidence? Hammer's got it. Morrison finds you here, we're all dead. Go. Behind them, the front door was already opening. Morrison's voice echoed through the bar. Stone, come on out. We need to have a conversation. Doc slid a shelf aside. Cold air rushed out of a narrow passage cut into the foundation. Straight through. Don't stop. Murphy's garage on the other end. I'll find you. How do I know Hammer won't destroy everything? Because Victor Stone just found out his best friend spent 15 years protecting his wife while Victor tried to kill him. He's not destroying anything. He's going to burn Morrison to the ground. Doc pushed her toward the tunnel. Now run! Emma ducked into the darkness. The shelf slid back into place. She ran. The tunnel was narrow and black and endless. Emma moved fast, one hand on the wall, heart slamming against her ribs. Behind her, muffled voices. Morrison's men searching the clubhouse. Her phone buzzed. Mom, where are you? Deputies just came by, asking about your father's things. Emma's blood went cold. I'm fine. At a friend's, what did they want? Asking if Ghost left anything behind. Papers? Files. I told them to get a warrant. Good. Her mother was tougher than she looked. Stay inside, don't let anyone in. I'll explain soon. Emma, what's going on? Trust me, Mom, please. Long pause. Be careful. I love you. Love you too. Emma kept moving. The tunnel twisted, turned, climbed, dropped. 300 steps. 400. Finally, a metal door. She pushed through into dim light. A garage, motorcycles everywhere. Tools on the walls, grease smell thick in the air. Who the hell are you? A man emerged from behind a lifted car. 60s, gray beard, shotgun in his hands. Doc sent me. I'm Ghost's daughter. The shotgun didn't lower. Ghost is dead. I know, I buried him. And I've got evidence that's going to get a lot more people buried if I don't get out of this county tonight. The man studied her. Long seconds ticked by. Murphy, he finally said. Coffee's in the back. Don't touch my bikes. Done. Emma waited 2 hours. Her phone kept buzzing. Mom getting more worried. News alerts about suspicious activity at a local bar. Sheriff Morrison giving interviews about ongoing investigations. He was looking for her. He knew. The garage door finally opened. Doc walked in, alone, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. What happened? Morrison searched everything. Hammer's in custody. The evidence? Safe. Hammer got it out before they grabbed him. Doc handed her a burner phone. Your father set this up. Emergency contact. Number saved as D is your uncle. Uncle Daniel. Only one who can help now. Morrison owns this whole county. Daniel's 2 counties over, outside his reach. I haven't seen Daniel since I was 5. He's still your blood, and after tonight, blood's all you have got left. Emma took the phone. Her hands were steady. She'd been terrified walking into that clubhouse, terrified in the tunnel, terrified waiting in this garage. But she wasn't terrified anymore. She was angry. The call connected on the second ring. Who is this deep voice? Wary, familiar somehow. Uncle Daniel, it's Emma, Ghost's daughter. Silence. Emma, his voice changed, softer. Little Emma. Not so little anymore. How did you get this number? Dad left it, in case something happened. Another silence, longer. What happened? He's dead, 3 weeks now. I heard. Did you hear why a heart attack, they said? That's what Morrison wants everyone to think. But Dad left evidence about Pine Valley, about the war, about everything. Sharp breath on the other end. Where are you, Tom? Murphy's garage. Doc says I need to get out of the county. He's right. Stay there. I'm sending people. Uncle Daniel. We'll talk when you're safe. Don't trust anyone else. Don't call anyone else. Pause. And Emma. Yeah. Your father was the best man I ever knew. Whatever you think happened between us, he was trying to protect everyone. I didn't understand until it was too late. The line went dead. 3 motorcycles pulled up 30 minutes later. Doc's hand went to his weapon. "Easy," a voice called out. "Ray sent us." The first rider took off his helmet, older, weathered face. "I'm Caleb, your cousin." Emma stared at him. "Caleb, last time you saw me, you were 5. Called me KK because you couldn't say my name right." "I remember." "Sort of." "Yeah, well," he almost smiled. "You've grown up. Ready to ride?" "Where are we going?" "Neutral ground. Old factory outside town. Your dad and Hammer started a business there before everything went to hell. Only place both clubs might agree to meet." "Both clubs?" "Whatever your dad found, it's about all of us. Both sides. We need everyone in the same room to hear it." Doc stepped forward. "I'll stay behind. Cover your trail." "You sure?" "Ghost was my friend too. Whatever he was trying to do, I'm going to make sure it gets done." He looked at Emma. "Your father would be proud of you. Walking into that clubhouse alone. Facing Hammer. Takes a special kind of crazy." He called it Taylor stubborn. "Yeah, that sounds like Ghost." Emma climbed onto the back of Caleb's bike. "Let's go end this war." The factory rose against the night sky like a tomb. Broken windows, rusted walls, a ghost of what it used to be. "Dad talked about this place once," Emma said as they dismounted. "Said it was where everything started." "Custom motorcycles," Caleb confirmed. "Him and Hammer built them together. Before the split, before Pine Valley, they were gonna take over the whole West Coast." "What happened?" "Morrison happened. Same thing that happened to all of us." They parked inside. Caleb hit a switch and weak lights flickered on. "Power still connected. Your dad kept it paid up. Said we might need it someday." Caleb's expression shifted. "Guess he was right." Footsteps behind them. Emma spun. A man walked out of the shadows. Tall, hard-faced. Ghost's eyes staring out of a stranger's face. "Uncle Daniel," she whispered. Daniel Brennan stopped 3 feet away. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then he pulled her into a hug so tight she couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice cracked. "For everything. The years, the silence, all of it. Dad never blamed you. He should have." Daniel released her, wiped his eyes. "Now, show me what my brother died for." Emma spread everything on the workbench. Recordings, bank statements, photographs. Her father's notes, pages and pages of evidence gathered over 15 years. Daniel went through it piece by piece. His face got darker with every document. "Son of a bitch." He picked up the photo of Rachel with Morrison. "She's alive. Our baby sister. Alive this whole time. Morrison's been using her, leverage to keep Dad quiet. And Ghost stayed silent for 15 years. Let the whole world hate him, just to keep Rachel safe. That's who he was." Daniel set down the photograph. His hands were shaking. "We need to move. Morrison's not gonna stop looking." "What about Hammer? He's still in custody." "Ray's working on it." Daniel checked his phone. "We should hear something." The phone buzzed. Daniel answered. Listened. His face went white. "When more listening. How bad?" His eyes closed. "Get him here. Now." He hung up. "What?" Emma demanded. "Hammer escaped during transport. Morrison's men shot him. Is he alive but hurt? They're bringing him here." 20 minutes later, 2 motorcycles roared into the factory. Doc and another man half carried Hammer through the door. Blood soaked his right leg. His face was gray, but his eyes were open, alert. Behind him, limping badly, came Razor. "What's he doing here?" Daniel's hand moved to his weapon. "Saved my life." Hammer grimaced as they lowered him into a chair. "Morrison's men ambushed us. Razor took a bullet getting me out." Daniel and Razor stared at each other. 15 years of hatred in the air. "Truce," Hammer said, "until this is over." "The hell, Daniel." Hammer's voice cut through. "I've seen Ghost's evidence, every page, every recording. Morrison killed our brothers. Morrison took Rachel. Morrison turned us against each other and sat back while we destroyed ourselves. I'm done fighting the wrong war." Silence. Daniel looked at Razor, at Hammer, at Emma. Ghost wanted this, Emma said quietly. Both clubs working together. He wrote about it in his notes. Said it was the only way to take Morrison down. Daniel extended his hand toward Razor. The sergeant stared at it like a snake. Then he took it. Truce, until Morrison's finished. Hours later, the factory had transformed into a war room. Maps on the walls, phones charging on makeshift desks, men from both clubs standing guard together, awkward, tense, but united. Emma sat alone in the old office, her father's letter in her hands. When this is over, remember that forgiveness matters more than vengeance. Hammer appeared in the doorway. His leg was bandaged, but he wasn't using a crutch anymore. Can't sleep either. Emma shook her head. He crossed the room slowly, sat down across from her. Doc found something in your father's notes. A federal contact, Agent Patricia Wells, FBI Organized Crime Task Force. I saw that name. She's our way out, someone outside Morrison's reach. Hammer studied her face. Your father spent 15 years building a case that could put Morrison away forever. Now it's up to us to deliver it. And Rachel? First the evidence, then my wife. His voice hardened. Ghost spent 15 years protecting her. I won't waste that sacrifice. He believed in you, even after everything. I know. Hammer's eyes were wet again. That's what makes it worse. All those years I was trying to kill him, and he was trying to save me. Downstairs, someone called out, "Movement on the perimeter." Hammer was on his feet instantly. Emma grabbed her backpack. What's happening? Daniel appeared in the doorway. Multiple vehicles approaching, unmarked. Morrison. Don't know yet, but we need to move, now. Emma followed them down the stairs. Through the factory windows, headlights were visible in the distance, getting closer. How did they find us? Caleb demanded. Doesn't matter. Hammer was already giving orders. Back exit, split up, rendezvous at Point Charlie in 2 hours. And the evidence goes with Emma. Hammer turned to her. You're the only one Morrison doesn't have a file on. The only one who can get through his checkpoints. I'm not leaving. Your father trusted you with his life's work. Now I'm trusting you too. He pressed a set of keys into her hand. Gray sedan out back. Papers in the glove box. Drive until you hit the county line, then call Wells. Tell her Ghost sent you. The headlights were closer now, a quarter mile, maybe less. What about you? We'll draw them off. Give you time to run. Hammer put his hand on her shoulder. Your father was the best man I ever knew. I spent 15 years hating him for something he didn't do. Don't let Morrison win. Don't let Ghost's sacrifice mean nothing. Daniel appeared at her side. I'll take her to the car. Go now. Emma ran, through the back of the factory, into the cold night air. Daniel beside her, pointing toward a gray sedan hidden under a tarp. Behind them, the sound of vehicles arriving. Doors slamming, men shouting. Get in! Daniel yanked off the tarp. Drive east until you hit Route 9, then south. Don't stop for anything. Daniel. I'll be fine. We've been running from Morrison's men for 15 years. Another night won't kill me. He pulled her into a quick hug. Your daddy's watching you, Emma. Make him proud. She got in the car, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, she saw Daniel running back toward the factory, saw muzzle flashes in the windows, heard the crack of gunshots. Her foot pressed the gas. The sedan shot forward into the darkness. Emma drove for 3 hours. County line, then another, then another. The radio played news reports about coordinated gang violence in Summit County. Sheriff Morrison promising to restore order. No mention of corruption, no mention of murder, no mention of Rachel Stone. Morrison was controlling the story, burying the truth, just like he'd been doing for 15 years. Emma pulled into a rest stop as the sun came up. Her hands were shaking again. Exhaustion and adrenaline and fear all hitting at once. She pulled out the burner phone, found the number for Agent Wells. Dialed. 3 rings. Yes, Agent Wells. My name is Emma Brennan. My father was Thomas Ghost Brennan. Silence. Ghost is dead. I know, I buried him and I have everything he collected. 15 years of evidence against Sheriff Frank Morrison. Recordings, bank statements, witness testimony. Everything you need to take him down. Long pause. Where are you? Rest stop on Route 9. About 40 miles past the Summit County line. Stay there. Don't talk to anyone. I'll have agents there within the hour. How do I know I can trust you? Because your father trusted me. Because I've been waiting 15 years for this call. Her voice softened. He was a good man, Emma. One of the best I ever worked with. I'm sorry he didn't live to see this through. He didn't need to. He raised me to finish it. Emma hung up. She leaned back in the seat, staring at the ceiling of the car. Somewhere out there, Hammer and Daniel and Roser were fighting for their lives. Somewhere out there, Morrison was spinning lies. Somewhere out there, Rachel Stone was waiting to be found. And somewhere, maybe her father was watching. I got the message out, Dad, Emma whispered. Now let's see what happens next. The sun rose over the mountains. The war was just beginning. The FBI arrived in 47 minutes. Emma counted every second. 2 black SUVs pulled into the rest stop, moving slow and deliberate. No sirens, no lights, just dark windows and government plates. A woman stepped out of the lead vehicle. 50s, short gray hair, eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. Emma Brennan, Agent Wells. Get in. We need to move. Emma grabbed her backpack and climbed into the SUV. The door barely closed before they were moving again. Where are we going? Somewhere Morrison can't reach. Wells studied her in the rearview mirror. You look like hell, kid. I've been awake for 36 hours. People have been trying to kill me. Sorry I'm not camera ready. Something like respect flickered in Wells's eyes. Your father had a mouth on him too. Everyone keeps telling me that. Because it's true. Wells pulled a tablet from her bag, handed it back. I need to see everything. Every recording, every document, everything Ghost collected. Emma hesitated. How do I know you're not working with Morrison? You don't, but your father trusted me enough to name me in his emergency protocols. That's either good enough for you, or you can get out and take your chances alone. Emma opened her backpack. That's what I thought. For the next hour, Wells reviewed the evidence while her partner drove. Emma watched her face change as she listened to the recordings. Surprise, anger, something that looked almost like grief. 15 years, Wells finally said. Ghost was building this case for 15 years. You knew, I knew he was working on something. We met twice, maybe 3 times. He was careful, paranoid even, said he couldn't move until he knew Rachel was safe. Do you know where she is? Wells shook her head. Ghost never told me. Said it was the one piece he was still trying to confirm. She looked at Emma. But this, the recordings, the bank statements, this is enough to take Morrison down. RICO charges, murder conspiracy, kidnapping. He'll never see daylight again. What about my Uncle Hammer, the others? Depends on how much they cooperate. Wells leaned forward. Right now, both clubs are looking at serious federal charges. Racketeering, drug trafficking, a dozen other things Morrison's people have been pinning on them for years. They didn't. I know, but proving that takes time and cooperation. Wells' expression softened slightly. Your father set this up, Emma. He arranged limited immunity for both clubs in exchange for testimony against Morrison. The deal's been sitting in my files for 3 years, waiting for him to deliver the evidence. He was that close. He was that close. And then he died. Wells took a breath. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't help. But Ghost was a good man. One of the best informants I ever worked with. Emma's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Emma. Daniel's voice, strained. You safe? I'm with Wells, FBI. Where are you? Don't worry about us. Morrison's men hit the factory, but we got out. Hammer took another bullet, but he's still breathing. Another bullet. Grazed his shoulder. He's too stubborn to die. A pause. Listen, we found something in your father's notes, a location. We think it's where Morrison's keeping Rachel. Emma's heart stopped. Where old detention facility under the county courthouse, officially decommissioned 10 years ago. But your father's surveillance notes show regular activity, food deliveries, medical supplies. Someone's living down there. Rachel. That's what we're thinking. Another pause. We're going after her. Daniel, wait, Usso. Can't wait. Morrison knows we have the evidence. He's either going to move her or kill her. We've got maybe 12 hours before he figures out where she is. Let the FBI handle it. The FBI can't get a warrant fast enough. And even if they could, Morrison would know the second they applied. He's got people everywhere. Daniel's voice hardened. This is family Emma, my sister, Hammer's wife. We're getting her out. Then I'm coming too. Like hell you are. Ghost would haunt me forever. Ghost is dead because he couldn't finish this himself. I'm not letting everyone else die too. Emma looked at Wells. Tell me where to meet you. Long silence. Caleb will pick you up, 2 hours. I'll send coordinates. The line went dead. Wells was staring at her. You're not seriously considering. My aunt has been held prisoner for 15 years. My father died trying to save her. I'm not sitting in a safe house while everyone else risks their lives. You're 17 years old, Undawn. And I've done more in the last 2 days than most people do in a lifetime. You want Morrison help me get Rachel out. Then you'll have a witness who can bury him. Wells was quiet for a long moment. Your father really did raise you. Is that a yes? It's a God help me, I must be crazy. Wells pulled out her phone. I'll coordinate with your uncle. But Emma, if this goes sideways, you run. You don't look back. You don't play hero. You run. Deal. I mean it. So do I. Caleb picked her up 2 hours later at a gas station outside Morrison's jurisdiction. He looked worse than before. Bruised, cut above his eye, moving like his ribs were cracked. You okay? Better than some. He handed her a helmet. Factory got hit pretty hard. Lost 2 guys from the Ravens, 1 from the Wolves. Dead. Martinez didn't make it. The others are critical. Caleb's jaw tightened. Morrison's men weren't trying to arrest anyone. They were executing. Emma climbed onto the bike behind him. Where are we going? New safe house. Hammer's contact old military body, off-grid cabin about 20 miles north. Morrison doesn't know it exists. They rode for 40 minutes through back roads and logging trails. No other vehicles, no signs of pursuit. The cabin appeared suddenly hidden in a grove of pine trees. A dozen motorcycles parked outside. Men from both clubs standing guard together, still tense, still wary, but no longer pointing guns at each other. Daniel met them at the door. Agent Wells called, said you insisted on coming. I did. She also said you threatened to walk if she didn't help. That too. Daniel almost smiled. Definitely ghost kid. He led her inside. Hammer wants to see you. The cabin was small but functional. Maps covered one wall, radios and phones charging on a makeshift desk. And in the corner, propped up on a cot with his leg freshly bandaged and his shoulder wrapped in gauze, sat Victor Stone. He looked like death, but his eyes were sharp. You should be in a hospital, Emma said. Hospitals ask questions. Questions lead to Morrison. Hammer gestured to a chair. Sit. We need to talk. Emma sat. Wells showed me the immunity deal your father arranged. Both clubs. Limited prosecution in exchange for testimony. She told me. Did she tell you what happens if we don't take it? She mentioned RICO charges. RICO's the least of it. Morrison's been framing us for 15 years. Every drug bust, every weapons charge, every body that turned up in this county, he made sure the evidence pointed at us. Both clubs. Hammer shook his head. Without that immunity deal, half my guys are looking at life sentences for things Morrison's people actually did. So, take the deal. We are, but it's not that simple. Hammer leaned forward, wincing at the movement. Morrison knows we have the evidence. He knows we're talking to the feds. Right now, he's got 2 choices, run or fight. And Frank Morrison has never run from anything in his life. What are you saying? I'm saying he's going to come after us with everything he has. And the first thing he's going to do is eliminate the one piece of leverage he thinks we don't know about. Rachel. Your father spent 15 years keeping her alive by staying quiet. Now Morrison knows the silence is over. He's got no reason to keep her breathing. Daniel joined them. That's why we're moving tonight. Wells is coordinating federal backup, but they won't be in position until morning. We can't wait that long. How do we get into a courthouse? Emma asked. We don't. Caleb appeared with a tablet showing building schematics. Courthouse itself is too secure. But the old detention facility underneath that's a different story. Original construction from the 1920s. Multiple access points that aren't on any current blueprints. How do you know about them? Because your father mapped them 3 years ago. Caleb pulled up another file. Ghost spent months studying that building. Every entrance, every exit, every blind spot in the security system. He was planning his own extraction. Why didn't he do it? Because Morrison would have known immediately, Hammer said quietly. And Rachel would have been dead before Ghost got within 100 yards. He needed to take Morrison down first, remove the threat, then rescue Rachel. But he died before he could finish. Now we finish for him. The plan was simple, dangerous but simple. 2 teams. First team Daniel Razor and 4 others would create a diversion at Morrison's precinct headquarters. Draw his attention, his men, his resources away from the courthouse. Second team, Hammer, Caleb, Emma, and Doc would enter the courthouse through an old maintenance tunnel Ghost had identified. Access the detention level. Find Rachel. Get out. Why me? Emma asked when they finished briefing. Because you're Ghost's daughter, Hammer replied. Rachel hasn't seen anyone from outside in 15 years. She's going to be scared, traumatized. She needs to see a friendly face. She doesn't know me. I was 2 when she disappeared. She'll know Ghost's eyes when she sees them. That's enough. They moved out at midnight. The diversion team left first. Daniel pulled Emma aside before he mounted his bike. If something happens to me, don't. Listen, his voice was fierce. If something happens, you get Rachel out. You get her to Wells, and you don't look back. Promise me. Daniel, promise me. Emma swallowed hard. I promise. Daniel hugged her, quick, tight. Then he was on his bike and gone roaring into the darkness with 5 other riders. Hammer approached. He was moving better now, adrenaline masking the pain. Ready? No. Good. Anyone who says they're ready for something like this is either lying or stupid. He handed her a pistol. You know how to use it. Dad taught me. Then pray you don't have to. They drove to within half a mile of the courthouse, then proceeded on foot. 4 figures in dark clothing moving through shadows. The maintenance tunnel entrance was exactly where Ghost Notes said it would be, behind a dumpster in an alley hidden under a rusted grate. Caleb went first, then Doc, then Emma. Hammer brought up the rear, moving slowly but steadily, despite his injuries. The tunnel was narrow and old, brick walls damp with moisture, air thick with the smell of decades. Your father walked this route 6 times, Caleb whispered as they moved. He knew every turn, every obstacle. Why didn't he write about it in his notes? He did, in code. Took me 3 hours to crack it. A pause. Ghost didn't trust anyone completely, not even the people he was trying to save. They moved in silence after that. 5 minutes. 10. The tunnel twisted and climbed, following paths that predated the current building by a century. Finally, Caleb stopped, pointed upward. A trapdoor, old wood reinforced with metal. Detention level. According to Ghost maps, we come up in a storage room. From there, the cells are about 50 yards east. Security. 2 guards according to the rotation schedule Ghost documented. But that was 3 years ago. Could be more now. Or less, Doc added. Morrison might not want too many people knowing about this place. Hammer pushed past them. Only one way to find out. He climbed the ladder slowly, favoring his injured leg, pressed his ear to the trapdoor, listened. Then he pushed it open. Nothing. No alarms, no shouts. One by one they climbed up. The storage room was exactly as Ghost had described. Old filing cabinets, forgotten furniture, dust thick on every surface. Caleb checked the door. Clear. They moved into the corridor. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made her flinch. But she kept moving, because her father would have kept moving, because Rachel was somewhere in this building waiting for a rescue that had been delayed 15 years. 50 yards. That's what Caleb had said. 20 yards in, they heard voices. Everyone froze. Don't know why we're still here. Morrison said this place was compromised. Morrison says a lot of things. Until I get orders directly, she stays put. Been 15 years. What's she even worth anymore? Above our pay grade, man. Just do the job. The voices faded, footsteps moving away. Hammer signaled. Keep moving. They reached the cell block. 3 cells, old iron bars, ancient locks. The first 2 were empty. The third one wasn't. Emma saw her first, a woman curled up on a thin mattress in the corner, gray hair that might once have been brown. thin arms wrapped around her knees, eyes staring at nothing. Rachel! Hammer's voice cracked on the name. The woman's head snapped up. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't breathe. Then she saw him. Victor. It's me. I'm here. I'm getting you out. Rachel scrambled to her feet, crossed to the bars. Her hands were shaking as she reached through them. 15 years. 15 years I waited. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Hammer's voice broke. I thought you were dead. I thought Ghost saved me every day. He sent messages. Through the guards Morrison didn't own. Kept me alive. Kept me hoping. Tears streamed down her face. Where is he? Where's my brother? Hammer couldn't answer. Emma stepped forward. Aunt Rachel? Rachel's eyes found her, widened. Oh my God, Emma, little Emma. Not so little anymore. You have his eyes? You have Ghost's eyes. Rachel's voice shattered. Where is he? Why isn't he here? Emma took a breath, the hardest breath of her life. He's gone, 3 weeks ago. His heart. Rachel's face crumbled. No, 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 no. He promised. He promised he'd come himself. He tried. Emma reached through the bars, took her aunt's hand. He spent 15 years trying. He built a case against Morrison. Evidence, recordings, everything. He was so close. And then Morrison found out, and Dad's heart gave out before he could finish. Emma squeezed her hand. But he sent me. He trusted me to finish what he started. I delivered his message to Hammer. I brought the evidence to the FBI. And now I'm here. We're getting you out. Doc was working on the lock. Old mechanism. Rusted. Stubborn. Almost, he muttered. Just need another minute. We don't have a minute. Caleb was watching the corridor. Those guards are going to circle back. Then buy me time. Hammer positioned himself at the corridor entrance. Pistol ready. Emma stayed with Rachel, kept holding her hand, kept talking. Daniel's here too, your other brother. He's running a diversion to keep Morrison's men busy. Danny's alive. Alive and angry as hell. He thought you were dead. They all did. Morrison lied to everyone. I know. Rachel's voice was hollow. He told me the clubs were at war, that Victor had ordered hits on Ghost. That Ghost was retaliating. He said if I ever tried to escape, he'd kill everyone I loved. So you stayed. So I stayed for 15 years, watching the men I loved destroy each other, and I couldn't say a word. Her grip tightened on Emma's hand. Tell me it's over. Tell me the war is over. It will be. Tonight. Morrison's going down. Both clubs are working together. Together. Hammer and Daniel, side by side, like Ghost had always wanted. Rachel laughed, a broken, beautiful sound. Ghost, still saving us even after... Got it? Doc swung the cell door open. Rachel stumbled out. Hammer caught her, held her like she might disappear if he let go. We need to move, Caleb urged. Now. They ran. Back down the corridor, back toward the storage room, back toward the tunnel and safety and freedom. They were 20 feet from the trap door when the lights came on. Stop right there. 6 men, tactical gear, weapons raised. And behind them, walking slowly, smiling like he'd already won, stood Sheriff Frank Morrison. Well, the whole family reunion. How touching. Hammer pushed Rachel behind him, raised his weapon. Morrison. Stone. Morrison shook his head. 15 years I've been waiting for you to do something stupid enough to justify killing you. And here you are breaking into a county facility, assaulting officers. I couldn't have asked for a better gift. It's over, Frank. The FBI has everything, Ghost's recordings, your bank accounts, every piece of evidence you thought was buried. Evidence can be discredited, witnesses can disappear. Morrison's eyes found Emma. Ghost's daughter, I should have dealt with you the same night I dealt with your father. Emma's blood went cold. You killed him. Heart attack. Very sad. Very natural. Morrison smiled. The coroner agreed. Of course, the coroner works for me, along with half the judges in this state. Not the federal ones. No, but federal cases take time. Years sometimes. And accidents happen. Witnesses get cold feet. Evidence gets lost. He gestured at his men. Take them, all of them, and make it look good for the reports. The tactical team moved forward, and then everything happened at once. Gunfire exploded from the corridor behind Morrison. His men spun. Two went down immediately. Daniel burst through a side door, Razor right behind him. "Go!" Daniel screamed. "Get her out!" Caleb grabbed Emma, dragged her toward the trap door. Doc had Rachel. Hammer was firing, covering their retreat. Morrison dove for cover, screaming orders. His remaining men scattered, caught between two fronts. Emma hit the ladder, climbed, didn't look back. Behind her, she heard more gunfire, shouting, someone screaming in pain. She kept climbing. They emerged in the alley. Cold night air. Freedom. But they weren't alone. Agent Wells stood there, flanked by a dozen FBI agents in tactical gear. Federal agents, everyone on the ground. For one horrible moment, Emma thought they were done. Caught between Morrison and the FBI, no way out. Then Wells saw her. "Emma, status?" "Rachel's with us. Morrison's inside. Daniel and the others are still fighting." Wells nodded once. Turned to her team. "Move in. Federal warrants for Sheriff Frank Morrison. Murder, kidnapping, RICO conspiracy. Anyone who resists is to be considered hostile." The FBI flooded into the building. Emma collapsed against the alley wall. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Rachel was beside her, thin, shaking, but alive. "We did it," Emma whispered. "Dad, we did it." 20 minutes later, they brought Morrison out in handcuffs. His face was bloody, his confidence gone. He looked exactly like what he was, a man who had just lost everything. Daniel came out next, limping, arm in a makeshift sling, but walking. Then Hammer. More blood on his bandages, more pain in his eyes, but upright. Then Razor, and Doc, and Caleb. All of them, alive. Rachel broke away from Emma's side, crossed the distance to her brothers, to her husband. The four of them stood there together for the first time in 15 years. Nobody spoke. Nobody had to. Daniel pulled Rachel into his arms first, then Hammer. Then they were all holding each other, 15 years of grief and rage and loss pouring out in that one moment. Emma watched from the sidelines. This was what her father had wanted, what he'd died for. Not revenge, not destruction, reconciliation. Agent Wells approached. "We got him. Morrison's in federal custody. No bail, no deals." "What about the others? Hammer's men, Daniel's..." "The immunity deal holds. Your father's arrangements." Wells actually smiled. Ghost thought of everything, even from beyond the grave. "That was Dad." "Yes, it was." Wells put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "You did good, kid. Better than good. Ghost would be proud." "I know." Emma watched her family embrace in the flashing lights of federal vehicles. "He's probably watching right now, saying I told you so." The sun was coming up. The war was over, but the healing was just beginning. Rachel wouldn't let go of Hammer's hand. 3 hours since the rescue. 3 hours of federal interviews, medical examinations, and paperwork that seemed to never end. Through all of it, she held on to her husband like he might vanish if she blinked. Emma watched from across the FBI field office. Her aunt looked so small, so fragile. 15 years in a cell had stolen something from her that might never come back. "She's stronger than she looks." Daniel appeared beside her, arm, freshly bandaged, coffee in his good hand. "How do you know?" "Because she's a Brennan. We don't break easy." He handed her the coffee. "You should drink something, eat something. You've been running on adrenaline for 2 days." "I'm fine." "You're 17 and you just helped take down the most corrupt sheriff in state history. You're not fine. Nobody would be fine." Daniel's voice softened. "But you're standing. That counts for something." Agent Wells approached. Her face was grim. "We have a problem." Emma's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Morrison's lawyer just filed an emergency motion claiming illegal search, coerced testimony, evidence tampering." "That's insane. You have recordings. Recordings that were obtained by a civilian without proper authorization. Bank records accessed through methods we can't exactly explain in court." Wells shook her head. "Ghost was brilliant, but he wasn't a cop. Half this evidence might get thrown out." "So Morrison walks?" "Not if we can corroborate independently, which is why I need Rachel to testify on record." Everything she saw, everything she heard during those 15 years. Daniel stepped forward. She's been through hell. You can't just, I know what she's been through, but without her testimony, Morrison's lawyers might get him bail. And if he gets bail, he runs, or worse, he starts cleaning up loose ends. You mean killing witnesses? I mean exactly that. Emma looked at her aunt, still holding Hammer's hand, still looking like a ghost herself. Let me talk to her. Wells raised an eyebrow. She doesn't know you. She barely knows Daniel and Hammer anymore, but she knows Ghost. And right now, I'm the closest thing to Ghost she's got. Emma crossed the room before anyone could argue. Rachel looked up as she approached. Her eyes, so much like Ghost's, so much like Emma's own, were red from crying. Emma, hey, Aunt Rachel. They want me to testify. I heard them talking. Yeah, they do. I don't know if I can. Rachel's voice trembled. 15 years. 15 years I kept quiet because he said he'd kill everyone. And now they want me to stand up in a courtroom and you don't have to do anything. Rachel blinked. What? I mean it. You've been through more than anyone should ever have to survive. If you want to walk away, disappear somewhere, Morrison can never find you. Nobody would blame you. Emma took her aunt's free hand. But I need you to know something first. What? Dad spent 15 years building that case. Every recording, every document, every piece of evidence. He did it for you, to save you. And when his heart gave out, he trusted me to finish what he started. Emma squeezed her hand. I can't make you testify. But if Morrison walks everything Dad did, everything you survived, it means nothing. He wins. And I don't know about you, but I'm really tired of that bastard winning. Rachel stared at her for a long moment. Then she laughed. A small broken sound, but real. God, you sound exactly like him. I've been hearing that a lot lately. It's true. Rachel wiped her eyes. Ghost always knew exactly what to say to make you feel like a coward for quitting. Is it working? Yeah, damn him. Rachel took a breath. Okay, I'll testify, but I want something in return. Name it. I want to see Morrison's face when I do it. I want him to know that the woman he kept in a cage for 15 years is the one who's going to put him in one. Emma smiled. I think that can be arranged. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the next morning. Emma spent the night at the FBI field office with her family, a word that had taken on new meaning in the past 48 hours. Daniel slept on a couch. Hammer refused to sleep at all, keeping watch over Rachel like Morrison might somehow materialize through the walls. Caleb brought food nobody ate. Doc checked everyone's injuries 3 times. Razor paced the hallways, unable to sit still. Enemies for 15 years. Family now. At 3 a.m., Rachel found Emma in the break room. Can't sleep either, Emma shook her head. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that tunnel, or the factory, or the clubhouse. It gets better, eventually. Rachel sat across from her. I spent the first 5 years having nightmares every night. Then it was every week, then every month. The body learns to cope even when the mind doesn't want to. How did you survive 15 years in that place? Ghost. Rachel's voice was steady now, stronger. The guards Morrison trusted were complete loyalists, but the ones he didn't trust, the ones he used for grunt work, some of them were decent people doing a bad job because they had no other choice. Ghost found them, paid them, sent messages through them. What kind of messages? Updates, news about the outside, photos sometimes when he could manage it. Rachel smiled. He sent me a picture of you every year on your birthday, watched you grow up through smuggled photographs. Emma's throat tightened. I didn't know. He couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell anyone. Morrison was watching everything. Rachel reached across the table, touched Emma's face. But he talked about you constantly in his messages. How smart you were. How brave. How you had his stubbornness and your mother's heart. He never talked about you. I didn't even know you existed until 3 days ago. That was to protect you. If you didn't know about me, you couldn't accidentally reveal something that would get me killed. Rachel's hand dropped. Ghost carried that burden alone. For 15 years, never told anyone the truth because he knew Morrison would use it against him. And now the truth comes out. All of it. Tomorrow. The courthouse was a circus. Media vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions at anyone who looked official. Protesters gathered on both sides, some demanding Morrison's head, others convinced he was being framed. Emma entered through a side door with Wells and her family. Federal marshals flanked them, hands on weapons. Morrison's lawyer is going to try to discredit Rachel immediately, Wells warned. He'll bring up her mental state, her isolation, anything to make her testimony seem unreliable. Let him try, Rachel said quietly. They took their seats in the gallery, Hammer and Daniel on either side of Rachel, Emma behind them, Caleb and Razor in the back row watching everything. The door opened. Morrison walked in. Emma had expected him to look defeated, smaller, broken. He didn't. He walked like a man who still owned the room, smiled at the judge like they were old friends, nodded at his lawyer like victory was already assured. When his eyes found Rachel, he actually winked. Hammer's hands clenched into fists. Daniel put a restraining hand on his arm. "Not here," Daniel murmured. "Not yet." The hearing began. Morrison's lawyer was good, too good. He picked apart the evidence piece by piece, questioning chain of custody, challenging authentication, suggesting that the recordings could have been fabricated. "Your Honor, my client is a decorated law enforcement officer with 30 years of service. The so-called evidence against him was collected illegally by a known criminal associate and delivered by his 17-year-old daughter. This is clearly a vendetta, not justice." Wells objected. The judge overruled. Furthermore, the primary witness, Mrs. Rachel Stone, has been held in isolation for 15 years. Her mental state is questionable at best. Any testimony she provides cannot be considered reliable. Objection. Overruled. Continue, counselor. Emma felt sick. It was working. Morrison's lawyer was dismantling everything her father had built piece by piece. Then Rachel stood up. "Your Honor." The judge frowned. "Mrs. Stone, this is not the time for... I want to testify right now under oath." Morrison's lawyer laughed. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. I'll allow it." The judge gestured. "Mrs. Stone, please approach." Rachel walked to the witness stand. Her steps were steady. Her hands weren't shaking. She took the oath. Morrison's lawyer approached like a shark smelling blood. "Mrs. Stone, you claim to have been held captive for 15 years. I don't claim anything. I was held in a cell beneath the county courthouse for 15 years, 1 month and 12 days. I can describe every crack in the walls, every sound the pipes made, every meal they brought me, always at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., never a minute late. And you believe my client was responsible?" "I don't believe. I know." Rachel's voice didn't waver. "Sheriff Morrison visited me personally at least twice a month, sometimes more. He liked to remind me what would happen if I ever tried to escape, who he would kill, how he would do it." That's a very specific accusation. "Well, would you like specifics?" March 15th, 2012. Morrison came to my cell and told me that my brother Daniel's wife had just given birth to a son. He said if I ever tried to contact anyone, he would kill the baby in its crib and make it look like SIDS. I can give you the date of every threat, every visit. I kept track on the wall of my cell. The courtroom went silent. Morrison's face had finally changed, the confidence cracking. "Mrs. Stone." July 4th, 2015. Morrison showed me photographs of my husband at a funeral. One of his men had been killed in the war Morrison started. He laughed and said Victor was destroying himself and didn't even know why. He said by the time the truth came out, there would be nobody left alive who cared. "Your Honor, this witness is clearly..." November 23rd, 2019. Morrison told me my brother Ghost was dying. Heart problems. He said he'd been poisoning Ghost slowly for months, just enough to weaken him, not enough to raise suspicion. He said Ghost would be dead within a year, and then there would be no one left who even remembered I existed. Emma couldn't breathe. Poisoning. Morrison had been poisoning her father. The heart attack wasn't natural. It wasn't stress. It was murder. Hammer was on his feet. Daniel grabbed him, held him back. The judge banged his gavel. "Order, order," Rachel kept talking. February 2nd, 2022. Morrison came to me drunk. He was worried. He said Ghost had figured out the truth about Pine Valley. That Ghost had evidence. That Ghost was going to destroy everything Morrison had built. He said he was going to have to accelerate the timeline. Mrs. Stone. 3 weeks later, my brother was dead, and Morrison came to celebrate. He brought champagne. He made me watch him drink it while he described exactly how he'd done it. The poison, the dosage, the way he'd manipulated the coroner's report. The courtroom exploded, reporters shouting, Morrison's lawyers screaming objections. Hammer breaking free from Daniel's grip and lunging toward the defendant's table. Federal marshals tackled him before he reached Morrison. The judge called for a recess, but it didn't matter anymore. Rachel had done what 15 years of silence couldn't. She'd looked Morrison in the eye and destroyed him with the truth. Emma found her aunt in the witness room, surrounded by federal agents. You didn't tell us about the poisoning. I didn't know if I could say it. Rachel's composure finally cracked. 15 years I stayed silent because I thought I was protecting him. And Morrison was killing him the whole time. It's not your fault. I know, in my head I know. Rachel's voice broke. But my heart says I should have done something. Anything. Even if it got me killed. Dad wouldn't have wanted that. Ghost never wanted anyone to suffer for him. That's why he suffered alone. Rachel wiped her eyes. But it ends now, all of it. Morrison is going away forever. How do you know? Because I'm not done testifying. I have 15 years of names, dates, and details burned into my memory. Every crime Morrison committed, every person he bribed, every body he buried. Rachel's eyes hardened. By the time I'm finished, they won't just send him to prison. They'll put him under it. The hearing resumed an hour later. Morrison looked like a different man now. Smaller, older. The mask finally slipped. His lawyer tried to recover. Objections, motions to strike, demands for psychiatric evaluation of the witness. The judge denied them all. Rachel testified for 3 more hours, names and dates flowing from her like water from a broken dam. 15 years of horror documented in perfect detail. When she finally stepped down, the judge didn't hesitate. Based on the testimony presented, bail is denied. The defendant will be remanded to federal custody pending trial. He looked at Morrison with something like disgust. And given the severity of the allegations, I'm recommending that the prosecution pursue additional charges, including first-degree murder in the death of Thomas Brennan. Morrison's lawyer objected. Morrison himself said nothing. He just stared at Rachel with an expression Emma would remember for the rest of her life. Pure hatred, pure defeat. The marshals led him away. The war was over. But the aftermath was just beginning. That night, Emma finally went home. Her mother was waiting on the porch. Carolyn ran to the car before it even stopped, pulled Emma into her arms. 3 days. 3 days without knowing if you were alive or dead. I'm sorry, Mom, I couldn't. I know. Agent Wells explained everything. Carolyn held her tighter. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so angry at you, and I'm so relieved you're okay that I can't decide whether to ground you forever or throw you a parade. Can we start with food I haven't eaten in like 18 hours? Carolyn laughed through her tears. That I can do. Inside, the house felt different, smaller somehow, or maybe Emma was just bigger now, changed by everything she'd seen and done. Her father's workshop was still there, the floorboards still loose from where she'd found the box. She walked in alone, stood in the middle of the room where Ghost had spent 15 years building his case. I did it, Dad. Her voice was barely a whisper. I delivered your message. I saved Rachel. Morrison's going to prison forever. No response. Just the smell of motor oil and memories. I know you can't hear me. I know you're gone, but I need you to know everything you did mattered. Every sacrifice. Every secret. It all mattered. She touched his workbench. The tools he'd used. The projects he'd never finished. The clubs are working together now, Hammer and Daniel. After 15 years of war, they're brothers again. That's because of you. Because you never stopped believing it was possible. A tear slid down her cheek. I miss you. I miss you so much. But I understand now why you kept secrets. Why you couldn't tell us the truth. You were protecting everyone, even when it was killing you. She pulled his letter from her pocket, the one he'd left in the box. When this is over, remember that forgiveness matters more than vengeance. I'm trying, Dad. I promise I'm trying. The memorial service was held 1 week later. Not for Ghost, his funeral had already happened. This was different. This was for all of them. The 47 men and women who died in a war that should never have happened. Both clubs gathered at the old factory where everything had begun. where Ghost and Hammer had built motorcycles together before Morrison tore their world apart. A wall displayed photographs of the fallen, every name, every face, brothers and sisters who died believing lies about each other. Emma stood with her family, Rachel on one side, Daniel on the other. Hammer beside his wife holding her hand like he'd never let go. Caleb spoke first, then Razor, then Doc, then Hammer. 15 years ago, I buried 5 brothers and swore vengeance on the man I thought had killed them. I was wrong. His voice echoed through the silent factory. Ghost Brennan was not my enemy. He was my friend, my brother. And while I was trying to destroy him, he was trying to save us all. He looked at the photographs on the wall. Every name up there, every life lost is on Frank Morrison. But it's also on me, on Daniel, on all of us who were so blinded by hate that we couldn't see the truth. His voice cracked. I can't bring them back. I can't undo the damage, but I can make sure it never happens again. He turned to Daniel, extended his hand. Brothers don't destroy brothers. That was the founding principle of this club. I forgot that for 15 years. I won't forget again. Daniel took his hand, pulled him into an embrace. Enemies for 15 years. Brothers again. The room erupted in applause. Emma watched through tear-blurred eyes. This was what her father had wanted, what he died for. Reconciliation, forgiveness, brotherhood restored. Later, as the gathering wound down, Emma found herself alone with the memorial wall. 47 names, 47 lives. One face caught her attention. A young man, maybe 25, smiling in his photograph like the future held nothing but promise. Marcus Rodriguez, one of ours. She turned. Razor stood behind her, looking at the same photograph. He was 23 when he died. First year in the club. Caught a bullet meant for me during a retaliation raid. Razor's voice was rough. I hated your father for that. Hated him for 10 years. Turns out Morrison's men fired that shot, not Ghost's. I'm sorry. Me too. Razor looked at her. Your old man was trying to tell us the truth. We didn't listen. That's on us, not on him. He never blamed you, any of you. He just wanted to make it right. And he did, through you. Razor actually smiled. It transformed his face. You've got guts, kid. Walking into our clubhouse alone, facing down 23 armed bikers with nothing but an envelope and your father's stubborn eyes. I was terrified. Didn't show it. That's what matters. He nodded toward the gathering. You're one of us now, whether you like it or not. Ghost's legacy, Ghost's blood. What does that mean? Means you've got a family, a real one, bigger than blood. Razor started walking back to the group, then paused. One more thing. Yeah, your father, what he did keeping quiet for 15 years to protect Rachel, that's the hardest kind of courage. The kind nobody sees, nobody applauds. His eyes met hers. I spent 15 years thinking Ghost was a traitor. Turns out he was the most loyal man any of us ever knew. I won't forget that. None of us will. He walked away. Emma looked back at the memorial hall. 47 names, but 47 more still standing. 2 clubs becoming one. Her father's legacy. The night ended with a ride. Both clubs together. 50 motorcycles roaring through the darkness, following roads that Morrison's checkpoints had blocked for 15 years. Emma rode with Caleb, holding on to her cousin as the wind whipped past. Behind her, Hammer and Rachel shared a bike for the first time since their wedding day. Daniel led the formation, his club falling in line alongside their former enemies. They rode to Pine Valley Road, the site of the massacre that started everything. Someone had put up a marker there. 5 crosses, 5 names. The riders parked, killed their engines, stood in silence. Hammer walked to the crosses, knelt down, touched each name. Jackson, Torres, Murphy, Wendell, Cho. His voice was barely audible. I'm sorry I spent 15 years blaming the wrong man. I'm sorry I let Morrison's lies turn brother against brother. He stood slowly. But it ends tonight. The war, the hatred, all of it. We're one club again, one brotherhood, the way we were always supposed to be. He turned to face the gathered riders. Ghost Brennan gave his life to bring us together, to end a war that should never have started. I won't waste that sacrifice. None of us will. Daniel stepped forward, stood beside Hammer. We vote tomorrow, both clubs. One brotherhood. New name, new charter, new beginning. His eyes found Emma's in the crowd. Ghost wanted this. We're going to make it happen. The riders responded with thunderous agreement, two clubs becoming one. A brotherhood restored. Emma stood apart from the crowd watching it all unfold. 3 days ago, she'd been a normal high school senior whose biggest worry was her chemistry test. Now she was part of something bigger, something her father had spent 15 years building. Rachel found her in the darkness. You did this, all of this. Dad did this. I just delivered the message. You did more than deliver a message. You walked into enemy territory alone. You trusted people who had every reason to kill you. You believed in your father when no one else would. Rachel took her hand. Ghost would be so proud, so incredibly proud. I just wish he could have seen it. He's seeing it. Rachel looked up at the stars. Wherever he is, he's watching. I'm sure of it. Emma followed her gaze. Somewhere up there, maybe her father was finally at peace. The war was over. The truth was out, and the healing had finally begun. The vote was set for noon. Emma woke before dawn, unable to sleep. Her father's workshop called to her like it had every morning since she'd found the box. She walked through the quiet house past her mother's bedroom, where Caroline finally slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, and pushed open the workshop door. Something was different. The floorboard, the one she'd pried up to find ghost secrets, had been moved. Emma's heart stopped. She crossed the room slowly, knelt down, lifted the board. The space was empty except for a single envelope she'd never seen before. Her name on the front, her father's handwriting. What the hell? She tore it open. Emma, if you're reading this, you found everything else first. Good. That was the plan. But there's one more thing you need to know. Something I couldn't put with the other evidence because it would have gotten you killed before you ever reached Hammer. Morrison isn't working alone. He never was. There's someone above him, someone who's been pulling strings for decades. I couldn't prove it, not enough to include in the main evidence, but I'm certain. The name is in the safe deposit box at First National. Key is taped under my workbench. Box number 147. Be careful. This goes higher than you can imagine. I love you. I'm sorry for all of it. Dad. Emma's hands were shaking as she reached under the workbench. Her fingers found tape, a small key, someone above Morrison. The nightmare wasn't over. She grabbed her phone, called Daniel. It's 5 a.m., Emma. What? Dad left another letter, hidden under the first one. He says Morrison wasn't working alone. Silence. Where are you, Dimas? Dad's workshop. Stay there. Don't call anyone else. I'm on my way. Daniel arrived in 20 minutes. Emma showed him the letter, watched his face change as he read. Son of a bitch. You know something. I suspected years ago. Daniel set the letter down. Morrison was too connected, too protected. A county sheriff doesn't have that kind of reach without help from above. Who? I don't know. Ghost never told me. Maybe he didn't want to put me in danger. Daniel picked up the key. But now we find out. The vote's in 6 hours. Then we move fast. First National Bank opened at 8. Emma and Daniel waited across the street, watching for anything suspicious. Caleb stood guard near the back entrance. Razor watched the parking lot. You sure about this? Daniel asked. Dad wanted me to find it. He wouldn't have left that letter otherwise. He also said it could get you killed. Everything about the last week could have gotten me killed. I'm still here. Daniel almost smiled. Stubborn as hell, just like him. At 8:05, they walked in. The bank manager was a nervous man named Patterson. He kept glancing at Daniel's cut at the tattoos visible on his arms. Box 1147, we need access. I'll need to see identification. And the key, of course. Emma produced her driver's license and the key. The box is in my father's name, Thomas Brennan. He passed away last month. I'm very sorry for your loss. Patterson checked his computer. Yes, here it is, Thomas Brennan. But there's a note on the account, access restricted to immediate family with proper documentation. I'm his daughter. I see that, but the note specifies. Patterson stopped. Read something on his screen. His face went pale. What? Daniel stepped forward. Nothing. I just one moment, please. Patterson hurried toward the back office. Imama looked at Daniel. That's not good. No, it's not. 30 seconds later, Patterson returned with 2 security guards. I'm sorry, there's been a federal hold placed on this account. I can't allow access without authorization from federal hold since when? This morning, about an hour ago. Daniel grabbed Emma's arm. We need to go. Now. They were halfway to the door when 4 men in suits entered the bank. Federal agents, hands on weapons. Emma Brennan, Daniel Brennan, don't move. Emma's stomach dropped. The lead agent approached, tall, cold eyes, badge displayed. Mott and Marcus Webb, you're both coming with us. On what charges? Obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and possible conspiracy in the murder of Thomas Brennan. What? You heard me. Webb gestured to his men. Take them. They were separated immediately. Emma found herself in a federal interrogation room, hands cuffed to the table, staring at Agent Webb across the cold metal surface. This is insane. We didn't kill my father, Morrison did. That's not what the evidence suggests. What evidence? Webb opened a folder, slid photographs across the table. The first photo, Emma entering the Iron Wolves clubhouse. The second, Emma meeting with Daniel at the factory. The third, Emma and Daniel at the bank this morning. We've been watching you, Miss Brennan, since the moment you walked into that clubhouse with your father's evidence. Watching me, I went to the FBI. Agent Wells has been removed from the case. Emma felt like she'd been punched in the gut. Removed why? Conflict of interest. She was too close to your father, too willing to believe his version of events. Webb leaned forward. The truth is, Miss Brennan, your father was a criminal, a drug trafficker, a murderer, and the evidence he collected fabricated, designed to frame an innocent law enforcement officer. That's a lie. Webb pulled another document from the folder. Phone records showing your father in regular contact with known cartel members. Bank statements showing large deposits from untraceable sources. Witness statements describing Ghost Brennan as the architect of the Pine Valley Massacre. Those are fake. Morrison. Sheriff Morrison is a decorated officer who served this community for 30 years. Your father was a convicted felon who spent his life in outlaw motorcycle gangs. Webb's voice was ice. Who do you think a jury is going to believe? Emma stared at him. Something was wrong. Very wrong. You're one of them. Webb's expression didn't change. Excuse me. My father said Morrison wasn't working alone, that there was someone above him. That's you, isn't it? That's a serious accusation, Miss Brennan. You're covering for Morrison. That's why you grabbed us at the bank. You didn't want us finding whatever Dad hid in that safe deposit box. Webb stood slowly, walked around the table, leaned down until his face was inches from hers. Your father was a smart man, too smart for his own good. He spent 15 years digging into things that were none of his business, and you know what happened to him. Emma's blood ran cold. You killed him. Heart attack. Very tragic. The stress of living a double life, lying to everyone he loved. Webb straightened. It would be a shame if something similar happened to his daughter. If you hurt me, who said anything about hurting you? Webb walked toward the door. You're going to confess, Miss Brennan. You're going to tell the world that your father's evidence was fabricated, that Morrison is innocent, that this whole thing was a revenge plot against a good man. I'll never do that. Your mother's at home alone right now. Your Aunt Rachel is in federal protective custody, my protective custody, and your Uncle Daniel is in a cell down the hall. Webb opened the door. Think about how much you're willing to sacrifice for a dead man's lies. He left. Emma sat in the silence, heart pounding. Everything her father had built was crumbling. Morrison's people were everywhere, even in the FBI. And now they had her family. She had to get out, had to warn someone, but how? The door opened again. Emma expected Webb, expected more threats. Instead, Agent Wells walked in. Don't say anything. Wells moved quickly, unlocking Emma's cuffs. Webb's people are watching the cameras on a 3-minute delay. We have 2 minutes to get you out of here. How? I thought you were removed from the case. I was, officially, but I've been investigating Webb for months. Suspected he was dirty. Wells helped Emma to her feet. Your father knew too. That's why he never went to the FBI directly. He didn't know who to trust. Daniel, being moved to a different facility. Caleb's following. We'll get him out. Wells pressed a phone into Emma's hand. Rachel's safe. I moved her before Webb's team could grab her. She's with Hammer at a location Webb doesn't know about. Morrison's trial. Postponed. Webb's claiming new evidence that needs to be investigated. But that's just a stall tactic. He's trying to bury this whole thing. They moved into the hallway. Wells led her toward a service exit. What about the safe deposit box? Webb has it sealed, but your father was smarter than that. Wells pushed open a door. He made copies, sent them to someone Webb would never think to check. Who, Bio? Me. Wells handed her a flash drive. Ghost sent this 6 months ago. Said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you. I didn't understand at the time. Now I do. What's on it? Everything. Morrison, Webb, the entire network. Names, dates, bank accounts. Enough to bring down half the Justice Department. Emma stared at the drive. Why didn't you use it before? Because without Ghost alive to testify, it was just data. Easily discredited. Easily buried. Wells' eyes met hers. But now we have Rachel. We have the recordings. And we have you. A 17-year-old girl who walked into a room full of killers to deliver her father's message. You want to talk about witnesses a jury will believe? Outside, a motorcycle waited. Caleb at the handlebars. Go. Get to Hammer. Plan our next move. Wells stepped back. I'll handle Webb from inside. Buy you as much time as I can. They'll know you helped me escape. Probably. Wells almost smiled. Your father trusted me with his life. Least I can do is return the favor for his daughter. Emma climbed onto the bike behind Caleb. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything. Wells was already moving back toward the building. Now go. Caleb hit the throttle. They tore out of the parking lot, leaving the federal building behind. Emma held onto her cousin with one hand, the flash drive in her pocket with the other, her father's final weapon. The fight wasn't over yet. They rode for 2 hours through back roads and forgotten highways. Emma's mind raced the entire time. Webb, Morrison, the network her father had uncovered. How deep did it go? How many people were involved? And how were they supposed to fight an enemy that had infiltrated the FBI itself? Caleb finally pulled off the main road onto a dirt track that wound through dense forest. Another 20 minutes of bumping over roots and rocks before they reached a cabin that looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Hammer met them at the door. He looked worse than before, exhaustion and pain carved into every line of his face, but his eyes were sharp. Webb. He's dirty. Part of Morrison's network. Emma dismounted, legs shaking. He tried to make me confess. Said Dad's evidence was fabricated. That tracks. Hammer led them inside. Morrison's lawyer filed a motion this morning claiming newly discovered evidence that exonerates him. I'm guessing Webb provided it. Rachel was waiting inside. She rushed to Emma, pulled her into a fierce hug. Thank God. When Caleb called and said the feds grabbed you. I'm okay. Wells got me out. Wells? Hammer's eyebrows rose. I thought she was removed. She was, but she's been investigating Webb separately. Emma pulled out the flash drive. Dad sent her this 6 months ago, backup of everything, more than what he left in the box. Hammer took the drive. His expression shifted as he absorbed the implications. Ghost was playing a longer game than any of us realized. He knew he might not survive, wanted to make sure the evidence survived even if he didn't. Emma's voice caught. He thought of everything. Almost everything. Hammer plugged the drive into a laptop. He didn't plan on his daughter being the one to finish the job. Yes, he did, Rachel spoke quietly. In his last message to me, he said if anything happened to him, Emma would carry the torch. Said she had his stubbornness and her mother's courage. Said nothing would stop her once she decided to act. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. He said that word for word. Rachel squeezed her hand. He believed in you, Emma, more than he believed in any of us. The files on the drive were extensive. Names, dates, bank accounts, phone records, photographs of meetings that should never have happened. Morrison was just the visible face of a network that stretched across 3 states. Webb was his handler, a federal agent corrupted decades ago by the same cartel that had been using the MC war as cover for their operations. This is bigger than we thought. Hammer scrolled through document after document. Morrison wasn't just running drugs through the territory. He was coordinating shipments from Mexico. Webb was protecting the pipeline from federal interference. And the war between the clubs, Caleb asked. Perfect distraction. Two outlaw MCs killing each other kept everyone focused in the wrong direction. Hammer's jaw tightened. Ghost figured it out. That's why they had to kill him. But now we have proof that Webb will bury the second it surfaces through normal channels. Hammer closed the laptop. We need to go public. Wide. Media independent investigators anyone Morrison and Webb don't control. How do we know who they don't control? We don't. Hammer looked at Emma. That's why we need someone they can't discredit. Someone the whole country will believe. Me. You, Ghost's daughter, 17 years old, no criminal record, no connection to club business until 3 days ago. Hammer's expression was grim. You walk in front of cameras with this evidence, tell your story, they can't spin that. Not easily. I'll be a target. You're already a target. Webb made that clear. Rachel stepped forward. But if we do this right, you'll be a target the whole world is watching. Much harder to make someone disappear when millions of people know their face. Emma thought about her father. 15 years of silence. 15 years of gathering evidence in secret because he couldn't trust anyone. She was done hiding. How do we do this? The plan came together over the next 4 hours. Hammer coordinated with what remained of their trusted contacts. Rachel provided details from her captivity that corroborated the evidence. Caleb reached out to a journalist he'd met years ago, someone who'd been investigating Morrison's County for other reasons and kept hitting walls. The journalist's name was Sarah Chen, independent, fearless, had won awards for exposing corrupt officials in 3 different states. She agreed to meet within the hour, but getting to her would be dangerous. Webb's people were searching for Emma. Local police were still under Morrison's influence. Every major road would be watched. We split up. Hammer laid out a map. 3 decoy vehicles heading in different directions. Emma rides with me. We take the back roads to the meeting point. Everyone else creates confusion. That puts you at risk. Daniel had arrived an hour earlier, freed from federal custody through methods nobody asked about. If Webb's people spot you, then they spot a wounded old biker and his niece's kid. Nothing unusual about that. Hammer checked his weapon. Besides, Ghost trusted me with his message. Least I can do is get his daughter to the finish line. They moved out at dusk. 3 SUVs headed toward major highways, drawing any surveillance away from the real target. Emma and Hammer took a battered pickup truck that looked older than both of them combined. For the first hour, they drove in silence. Emma watched the rearview mirror, constantly looking for headlights that stayed too close or turned when they turned. Relax. Hammer's voice was calm. If they were following us, we'd know by now. How can you be so calm? Practice, he almost smiled. 50 years of walking into situations that could kill me. You either learn to stay calm or you die panicking. Is that what Dad was like, calm? Ghost, Hammer considered the question. Calm isn't the word I'd use. Determined. Focused. Like a dog with a bone, once he decided to do something, nothing could shake him loose. His voice softened. That's what made him dangerous. And that's what made him the best man I ever knew. But you spent 15 years trying to kill him. Because I believed Morrison's lies. Because I was too proud to admit I might be wrong. Because, Hammer stopped, took a breath. Because it was easier to hate Ghost than to face the possibility that everything I'd done for 15 years was based on a lie. And now I have to live with it. 47 names on that wall. 47 brothers who died because I couldn't see the truth. His hands tightened on the wheel. Ghost forgave me. His letters to Rachel, he never blamed me. Not once, even when I was hunting him, he still believed we could fix this. That sounds like Dad. That was exactly Dad. Hammer glanced at her. And you're more like him than you know. Walking into my clubhouse alone, standing up to Webb, refusing to give up even when everything was falling apart. He shook his head. Ghost would have been proud. Hell, he probably is proud wherever he's watching from. They met Sarah Chen at an abandoned rest stop 30 miles outside the city. She was smaller than Emma expected. Mid-40s, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, notebook already in hand. Your Ghost's daughter. Emma Brennan. I've been investigating Morrison for 2 years. Every lead went nowhere. Every source dried up. Chen's expression was intense. Your father's evidence, if it's real, could blow this whole thing open. It's real. Emma handed her the flash drive. Recordings, bank statements, photographs, and my Aunt Rachel can corroborate everything from her 15 years in captivity. Chen plugged the drive into her laptop, started reviewing files. For 10 minutes, nobody spoke. Then Chen looked up. This is extraordinary. Morrison, Webb, the cartel connections, the manufactured war between the clubs. She shook her head. How long was your father building this case? 15 years. And he never went public because Morrison had my aunt and because he didn't know who in law enforcement he could trust. Chen nodded slowly. I understand now why my sources kept disappearing, why the walls kept going up. She closed the laptop. This is the story of the decade, maybe the century, but publishing it means painting targets on all of our backs. We know. And you're still willing to go on camera, tell your story. Emma thought about her father, about the workshop where he'd spent 15 years gathering secrets, about the letter he'd left behind, hoping she'd find the courage to finish what he started. I'm willing. Then let's do this. They recorded the interview in a secure location Chen had used before, a house belonging to a source who'd died under suspicious circumstances 2 years earlier. Nobody was watching it anymore. Emma told her story from the beginning, finding the box, the recordings, walking into the Iron Wolves clubhouse, the revelation about Rachel, Morrison's arrest, Webb's betrayal, everything. Chen asked questions, probed for details, made sure the narrative was airtight. When they finished, 4 hours had passed. This will go live tomorrow morning. Chen packed up her equipment. I'm sending copies to 6 different media outlets simultaneously. Even if Webb tries to suppress it, he can't stop all of them. What about us? Disappear for 24 hours. Once the story breaks, you'll be safer in public than in hiding. But until then, Webb will do anything to stop this, including killing us. Including that. Chen's expression was serious. I won't lie to you, Emma. The next day is the most dangerous of your life. But if we survive it, Morrison and Webb are finished. Your father's 15-year mission will finally be complete. They drove through the night. Hammer had arranged a safe house, a cabin deep in the mountains owned by a veteran who'd served with him and Ghost decades ago. No connection to either club. No way for Webb to trace them. Emma tried to sleep. Couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Webb's face, heard his threats, imagined what would happen if he found them before the story went live. At 3 a.m., she gave up and walked outside. The stars were incredible out here. No city lights to dim them, just endless points of light scattered across the darkness. Can't sleep either. She turned. Rachel stood behind her, wrapped in a blanket. Too much adrenaline. I know the feeling. Rachel joined her, looking up at the sky. First night after Morrison took me, I didn't sleep for 3 days. Thought if I closed my eyes, I'd wake up and find out it was all real, that I was never going home. How did you survive? Spite, mostly. Rachel almost laughed. Morrison wanted me broken, wanted me to give up hope. Every day I stayed sane was a victory against him. She paused. And Ghost, his messages. Knowing he was out there working to free me, that kept me going more than anything. Did you ever doubt him? Once. Rachel's voice dropped. About year 10, Morrison told me Ghost had been killed in a raid, showed me photographs, a funeral, everything. Tears glistened in her eyes. I believed it for almost a year, thought I'd lost him forever. But he was alive. He was alive, and the next message he sent. Rachel wiped her eyes. He apologized, said he'd had to let Morrison think he was dead for a while to throw off surveillance, said he was sorry for putting me through that pain. That sounds like Dad. Always apologizing for things that weren't his fault, always carrying burdens that should have been shared. Rachel looked at Emma. You know what his last message said, the one he sent a week before he died? What? Hold on just a little longer. Emma's ready. She'll finish what I started. Rachel's voice broke. He knew he was dying. And his last thoughts were about making sure you could complete his mission. His mom felt tears sliding down her own cheeks. I miss him. I know, baby, I know. Rachel pulled her into a hug. But he's here, right now, watching over us, making sure we see this through. How do you know? Because that's who Ghost was, stubborn as hell even in death. Rachel held her tighter. We're going to finish this. For him, for all of us. The sun came up at 6:47 a.m. At 7 Hosuri's Sarah Chen's story went live. By 7:15, it was the #1 trending topic in the country. By 8:00, federal marshals had arrived at Webb's office to arrest him. By 9:00, Morrison's emergency bail hearing was canceled indefinitely. By 10:00, 3 senators had called for a full investigation into corruption in federal law enforcement. Emma watched it all unfold on a borrowed laptop surrounded by her family. Hammer, Rachel, Daniel, Caleb, Doc, Razor. 2 clubs merged into one, gathered in a tiny cabin in the mountains watching the world change. We did it. Daniel's voice was rough with emotion. Ghost did it. 15 years and he actually won. Not yet. Hammer stood, stretched his wounded leg. Morrison's still alive. Webb's still breathing. Until they're both locked away forever, this isn't over. But the evidence? Evidence convicts people. But the trial will take months, maybe years. And men like Morrison don't go quietly. Hammer looked at Emma. We need to stay vigilant, all of us, until this is truly finished. Emma nodded. I know. Do you? Hammer's expression was serious. Your Ghost's daughter. You delivered his message. You exposed the truth. That makes you important. It also makes you a target for anyone who wants revenge. I've been a target since I walked into your clubhouse. That was different. That was risk you chose. Hammer stepped closer. Now you're a symbol. The girl who brought down the most corrupt network in 3 states. People will come after you for that. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. So what do? You live, you keep fighting, and you remember that you're never alone. Hammer gestured at the room. These people, all of us, we're your family now. Ghost's legacy, Ghost's blood. We protect our own. The phone rang. Agent Wells. Turn on the news, Channel 7. Hammer switched channels, a press conference, federal courthouse, dozens of cameras. Morrison stood at the podium, handcuffed, flanked by marshals. But he was smiling. I have a statement to make, Morrison said, his voice carrying clearly through the speakers. The evidence presented against me was fabricated by Thomas Brennan, a known criminal who bore a personal grudge against me for years. However, in light of recent events, I've decided to cooperate fully with federal investigators. What the hell, Bosch? Daniel stepped forward. In exchange for this cooperation, I will be providing testimony against several individuals who were actually responsible for the crimes attributed to me, including, Morrison's smile widened, Victor Stone, Daniel Brennan, and the 17-year-old girl who orchestrated this entire conspiracy against an innocent law enforcement officer. The room exploded, reporters shouting questions, marshals trying to maintain order, and Morrison still smiling, being led away from the podium. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. He's blaming us. He's trying to take everyone down with him. Hammer's voice was ice. If he can't win, he'll make sure we all lose. Wells' voice came through the phone. He's lying, obviously, but his lawyers filed motions this morning claiming entrapment. They're arguing that the clubs manufactured evidence to frame him. That's insane. It's desperate, but it could work, at least long enough to delay the trial, maybe get some charges reduced. Wells paused. Emma, you need to come in, give a formal statement, counter Morrison's narrative before it gains traction. Emma looked at her family, at Hammer and at Rachel, at Daniel and Caleb and all the others. Where do you want me? Federal courthouse. 1 hour, we'll have security waiting. I'll be there. She hung up. Hammer was already moving. I'm going with you. So am I. Daniel grabbed his jacket. And me. Rachel stepped forward. Morrison kept me in a cage for 15 years. I want to look him in the eye when his lies fall apart. Emma looked at the people surrounding her. 2 clubs, 1 family, all of them willing to walk into danger for the truth. Her father's legacy. Let's finish this. The federal courthouse was a war zone of cameras and chaos. Emma stepped out of the SUV into a storm of shouting reporters, flashing lights, and questions hurled like weapons. Federal marshals formed a protective barrier around her family as they pushed toward the entrance. Emma, is it true you fabricated evidence against Sheriff Morrison? Miss Brennan, how do you respond to accusations that your father was a criminal? Are you part of the motorcycle gang conspiracy? Emma kept her head high, kept walking, just like her father had taught her. Never show fear. Lions smell it. Inside, the noise faded, but the tension remained. Agent Wells met them in the lobby, her face grim. Morrison's lawyers are good. They've already filed motions to suppress Rachel's testimony, claiming she was coerced. That's ridiculous. Rachel's voice was steel. I spent 15 years being coerced by Morrison. Now I'm finally telling the truth. I believe you. The judge needs to believe you too. Wells led them down a corridor. The hearing starts in 20 minutes. Morrison will be there, so will Webb. They're being tried together now. Webb's cooperating. Webb's trying to cut a deal, blaming everything on Morrison in exchange for reduced charges. Wells shook her head. These people would sell their own mothers to save themselves. They reached a waiting room. Emma's mother was already there. Mom. Carolyn rushed to her daughter, pulled her close. I saw the press conference. Morrison's lies. I know. Emma hugged her back. But we're going to end this. Today. Right now, say. How, by telling the truth, the whole truth, everything Dad worked for. A marshal appeared in the doorway. Miss Brennan, they're ready for you. Emma took a breath, looked at her family. Hammer, Rachel, Daniel, Caleb, her mother, Doc, Razor, all of them watching her with the same expression. Pride, faith, love. Okay, she straightened her shoulders. Let's finish this. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, reporters crammed into the back rows. Cameras prohibited, but artists sketching furiously. And at the defendant's table, two men who had tried to destroy everything Emma loved. Frank Morrison looked smaller than she remembered. The arrogance diminished, the confidence cracked. But when his eyes found hers, she saw it still burning underneath the hatred, the calculation, the certainty that he could still win. Webb sat beside him, cold, expressionless. A man who had sold his soul so long ago he'd forgotten he ever had one. Emma took her seat at the witness stand. The judge, a severe woman named Harrison, who had a reputation for tolerating no-nonsense, addressed the courtroom. We are here to examine testimony relevant to the cases against Frank Morrison and Marcus Webb. Miss Brennan, you understand you're under oath? Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. The prosecutor, a federal attorney named Chen, no relation to the journalist, approached first. Miss Brennan, please tell the court how you came to possess the evidence against Sheriff Morrison. Emma told her story, again. The same story she'd told a dozen times now. But this time, the whole world was watching. The box in her father's workshop, the recordings, the photographs. Walking into the Iron Wolves clubhouse, finding Rachel, Morrison's arrest, Webb's betrayal, every detail laid out in clear, precise terms. When she finished, Chen nodded. Thank you, Miss Brennan. No further questions at this time. Morrison's lawyer stood, a thin man with expensive suits and reptilian eyes. Douglas Whitfield, the best defense money could buy. Miss Brennan, you claim your father gathered this evidence over 15 years. He did, but you have no direct knowledge of how it was collected. I found it after he died. So you're asking this court to accept evidence gathered by a dead man, delivered by his teenage daughter, against a decorated law enforcement officer. Whitfield's voice dripped with condescension. Do you understand how that sounds? I understand how the truth sounds, Mr. Whitfield, even when people don't want to hear it. Whitfield's eyes narrowed. Your father was convicted of assault in 1992. He was a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang for over 2 decades. He had documented connections to criminal organizations across 3 states. My father was a veteran who came home from war and found family with other veterans. He made mistakes. He also spent 15 years trying to fix the biggest one, believing that Sheriff Morrison was anything other than a monster. Objection. Whitfield turned to the judge. The witness is editorializing. Sustained. Miss Brennan, please stick to facts. The facts are in the evidence. Emma kept her voice steady. Recordings of Sheriff Morrison ordering the Pine Valley murders. Bank statements showing payments to the hitmen who carried them out. Photographs of my Aunt Rachel held captive for 15 years by a man who used her to blackmail my father into silence. Those are facts, Your Honor. Everything else is just noise. Whitfield tried another angle. Your Aunt Rachel Stone has been isolated for 15 years. Her mental state is exactly what you'd expect from a woman who was kidnapped and held prisoner by a corrupt sheriff. Emma leaned forward. She kept records, dates, times, every visit Morrison made to gloat over his captive, every threat he made against her family. That's not the behavior of a mentally unstable person, Mr. Whitfield. That's the behavior of a survivor. Miss Brennan, you want to talk about mental state? Let's talk about a man who started a war between two motorcycle clubs and sat back and watched while 47 people died. Let's talk about a man who poisoned my father slowly over months, then stood over his grave and smiled. That's the mental state this court should be examining. Objection. Overruled. Judge Harrison's expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in her eyes. The witness may continue. Whitfield tried to recover. Your Honor, this testimony is inflammatory and unsupported. Then bring your client up here and let him deny it under oath. Emma's voice cut through the courtroom. Let him explain the recordings. Let him explain the bank statements. Let him explain why my aunt was found in a cell beneath his courthouse after 15 years. If he's innocent, let him prove it. The courtroom went silent. Whitfield looked at Morrison. Morrison looked at Whitfield. Neither moved. No further questions, Whitfield said quietly. Emma stood up. The prosecutor called Rachel next. Watching her aunt walk to the stand, Emma felt something shift in the room. Rachel looked fragile, small. The 15 years of captivity had stolen something from her that might never fully return. But her voice was clear when she took the oath. Her eyes were steady when she looked at Morrison. Mrs. Stone, please describe your captivity. Rachel started talking, and once she started, she didn't stop. Every detail, every horror, every moment of the 15 years Morrison had kept her in a cage. The threats against her family, the visits where he would taunt her with news of the war between the clubs. The day he told her Ghost was dying, she'd never see her brother again. He showed me photographs of my husband ordering hits on Ghost's men. Told me Victor had become a monster because of what my brother had done. Rachel's voice cracked but held. I believed him. For years I believed that the men I loved had destroyed each other. And then I found out Morrison had engineered all of it. Every death, every act of violence. All to keep two clubs too busy fighting each other to notice the drugs flowing through their territory. Did Sheriff Morrison ever admit his crimes to you directly? Every time he visited, he loved to brag, loved to remind me that he was untouchable. That even if I escaped, nobody would believe me because I'd been crazy for 15 years. Rachel looked directly at Morrison. He was wrong. Whitfield's cross-examination was brutal. He attacked Rachel's mental stability, questioned her memory, suggested she'd been manipulated by the clubs to provide false testimony. Rachel answered every question calmly, clearly, without flinching. You've been isolated for 15 years, Mrs. Stone. How can you possibly remember specific dates and details? Because I had nothing else to do except remember. Rachel's voice was ice. I carved marks into my cell wall, one for every day, one for every visit, one for every threat. I can show you the wall, Mr. Whitfield. The FBI has photographs, 5 for 78 days. Would you like me to describe what happened on any particular one? Whitfield had no response. I thought not. The prosecution rested. Whitfield called his own witnesses, character witnesses for Morrison, law enforcement colleagues who swore he was a good man, a dedicated public servant. None of them could explain the recordings. None of them could explain the bank statements. None of them could explain Rachel. The hearing recessed for lunch. Emma found a quiet corner with her family. Nobody was hungry. It's going well. Wells appeared, coffee in hand. Judge Harrison isn't buying Whitfield's spin. The evidence is too strong. So Morrison goes away. Morrison goes away for life. Webb 2 if his deal falls through, which it's looking like it will. Wells paused. But there's something else. What? Morrison requested a private meeting with you. Emma's blood ran cold. Why? He says he has information, something he'll only share directly with you. Wells shook her head. You don't have to do this. We have enough to convict him without whatever he's offering. But if he knows something about your father, about how deep this network really goes, it might be worth hearing. Emma looked at Hammer, at Daniel, at Rachel. What do you think? I think Morrison is a snake who would say anything to save himself. Daniel's voice was hard. I also think he might actually know something useful. It's your call. Hammer met her eyes. Ghost's daughter, Ghost's mission. You decide. Emma thought about her father, about the 15 years he'd spent gathering evidence, about the letter he'd left behind warning that Morrison wasn't working alone. I'll do it. Emma, her mother stepped forward. I need to know, Mom. I need to know if there's more. If Dad's fight isn't really finished yet. Emma took her mother's hands. I'll be safe. There will be marshals right outside the door. It's not your body I'm worried about. It's what he might say, what he might try to put in your head. Nothing Morrison says can change what I know. Dad was a hero. Morrison is a monster. That's the truth. No amount of manipulation can touch it. The meeting was in a small room adjacent to the courtroom. Morrison sat across the table, hands cuffed guards at the door. He looked older up close. The arrogance still there, but thinner now. More desperate. Ghost's daughter. Finally, we meet properly. Say what you have to say. Right to business, just like your father. Morrison leaned back. He was always direct. Never played games. That's what made him dangerous. Is this the information that my father was dangerous? I already knew that. The information is about what your father didn't find. Morrison's eyes glittered. He was good, better than anyone I ever dealt with, but even Ghost couldn't see everything. Meaning Webb wasn't the only federal agent in my pocket, meaning the network goes higher than the FBI, higher than you can imagine. Morrison smiled. You think this is over? You've cut off one head. Some. There are a dozen more waiting to grow back. Emma felt cold and names require negotiation. You're looking at life in prison. What's there to negotiate? Life in prison versus death in prison. There's a difference. Morrison's smile faded. The people I worked for don't tolerate loose ends. The moment I'm convicted, I become a loose end. They'll reach me inside. Accident, suicide, natural causes. He shrugged. Unless I have protection, real protection. So you want to trade names for safety? I want to survive long enough to avoid my retirement, even if it's behind bars. Morrison leaned forward. Your father understood this game. He knew the network was bigger than one corrupt sheriff. That's why he kept gathering evidence even after he had enough to bury me. He was trying to map the whole thing. Did he? Close. Very close. But he died before he could finish. Morrison's voice dropped. I can finish it. I know where the files are. I know who the other players are. I can give you everything. Why would you help us? Because your father was right about one thing. Morrison's expression shifted. Something almost like respect flickered in his eyes. This thing, this network, it's too big, too powerful. I thought I was running it. Turns out I was just another pawn. He laughed bitterly. Frank Morrison, most powerful man in 3 counties, and I was dancing on someone else's strings the whole time. Who? That's what the negotiation is for. Emma studied him. The man who had killed her father, who had imprisoned her aunt, who had started a war that killed 47 people. No deal. Morrison blinked. What? I said no deal. You want protection, you want comfort, you want to enjoy your retirement. Emma stood up. You poisoned my father. You held my aunt in a cage for 15 years. You destroyed families. Destroyed lives. You don't get to negotiate your way to a comfortable cell and 3 meals a day. You need what I know. We'll find it ourselves. We found everything else. Emma walked toward the door. My father spent 15 years fighting you. He won. And you're going to spend whatever time you have left knowing that a dead man and his teenage daughter destroyed everything you built. You're making a mistake. No, my father made a mistake. He stayed silent to protect people he loved, and it cost him everything. I'm not staying silent, and I'm not protecting monsters. She opened the door. Goodbye, Morrison. Enjoy prison. She walked out. Morrison's voice followed her. They'll come for you, the network doesn't forgive you, and everyone you love. The door closed on his threats. Wells was waiting in the hallway. What happened? He tried to deal. I refused. Emma, if he knows about other people in the network, then we find them ourselves, like Dad would have done. Emma looked at her. I'm not making deals with the man who murdered my father, no matter what he's offering. Wells studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Let's go finish this. The afternoon session was decisive. Judge Harrison heard final arguments, reviewed the evidence one last time. The whole courtroom held its breath. The evidence presented against Frank Morrison and Marcus Webb is overwhelming. Recordings, financial documents, testimony from a victim held captive for 15 years, and corroborating documentation gathered over more than a decade. The judge's voice was firm. I find sufficient cause to proceed to trial on all charges, including murder, kidnapping, racketeering, and conspiracy. Morrison's lawyer leaped up. Your Honor, bail is denied. Both defendants will be remanded to federal custody pending trial. Harrison looked at Morrison with barely concealed contempt. Given the severity of the allegations and the risk of flight or witness tampering, I see no reason to offer any leniency. The gavel came down. Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks. It was over. Finally, really over. Around her, the courtroom erupted. Reporters shouting, camera artists furiously sketching, marshals moving to collect the defendants. Morrison caught Emma's eye as they led him away. The hatred was gone now, replaced by something else. Defeat. This isn't finished, he said. Yes, it is. Emma's voice was steady. You just don't know it yet. They led him out. Emma turned to her family. Hammer was crying, actually crying. The toughest man she'd ever met, tears streaming down his weathered face. Ghost, he whispered. You did it, brother. You actually did it. Rachel collapsed into Daniel's arms. 15 years of pain finally acknowledged, finally avenged. Carolyn pulled Emma close. Your father, oh, your father would be so proud. I know, Mom. Emma hugged her back. I know. The memorial was held 1 week later, not the rushed funeral 3 weeks ago before Emma knew the truth. This was different. This was a celebration, a recognition of everything Ghost Brennan had sacrificed. Both clubs gathered at Pine Ridge Cemetery. Hundreds of riders, hundreds of brothers and sisters who had spent 15 years on opposite sides of a manufactured war. Together now, united by the truth. Emma stood beside her mother, watching the crowd gather. Hammer and Daniel flanked them. Rachel between her husband and her surviving brother, finally free, finally home. The service was simple. Hammer spoke first, his voice rough but clear. Thomas Ghost Brennan was my brother before the clubs existed. We served together, bled together, built something together that was supposed to last forever. He paused. When Morrison's lies tore us apart, I spent 15 years hating Ghost, hunting him, trying to destroy him, and the whole time he was trying to save me. He looked at Emma. Ghost didn't just leave evidence behind, he left something more important. He left his daughter, a 17-year-old girl who walked into a room full of men who wanted to kill her just to deliver her father's message. Hammer's voice cracked. That's Ghost's legacy, not the evidence, not the recordings. Emma, the courage he raised, the truth he believed in. Daniel spoke next. Ghost was my brother by blood, but more than that, he was my conscience. The voice that told me when I was wrong, the hand that pulled me back when I went too far. Daniel wiped his eyes. I stopped listening to that voice 15 years ago, believed Morrison's lies instead. Spent years trying to kill the one person who was trying to save us all. He looked at the assembled riders. We can't undo what happened. Can't bring back the 47 brothers and sisters we lost, but we can honor them. Honor Ghost, by never forgetting what divided brotherhood really costs. Rachel spoke last. Ghost kept me alive for 15 years. Not just physically. Morrison's people fed me, kept me healthy enough to be useful, but emotionally, spiritually. Ghost sent messages through people Morrison thought he controlled. Photos of Emma growing up, news about the family, promises that he would get me out. Her voice broke. He never stopped fighting for me, never stopped believing it was possible, even when his heart was failing, even when Morrison was poisoning him. He kept working, kept gathering evidence, kept hoping. She looked at Emma. His last message to me was about you. He said Emma was ready, that she would finish what he started, that nothing would stop her once she decided to act. Rachel smiled through her tears. He was right. He was always right. The ceremony ended with a ride. Both clubs, all clubs, now united under a new name and a new purpose. Brotherhood Restored MC. The patch combined elements from both original designs round a phoenix rising from ashes. Ghost's idea, found in his papers. One more gift from beyond the grave. Emma rode at the front of the formation, her father's motorcycle, her father's cut, his colors on her back, his legacy in her heart. Behind her, 500 engines roared in unison, a thunder that shook the valley, that echoed off the mountains, that carried across the cemetery where her father's body lay, but his spirit never would. They rode to Pine Valley Road, the site where it all began, where Morrison's hired killers had murdered 5 men and launched 15 years of war. New markers stood there now, not just for the original 5, but for all 47, every name, every life lost to Morrison's manipulation. The riders parked, killed their engines, stood in silence. Emma walked to the markers alone. Dad, her voice was barely a whisper. I did what you asked, delivered the message, told the truth, brought everyone back together. She touched the marker bearing his name. Thomas Ghost Brennan, beloved father, beloved brother, hero. Morrison's going away forever. Webb too. The network is crumbling. The FBI is investigating everyone you identified in your files. She smiled. You won, Dad. You actually won. Behind her, 500 people waited in respectful silence. I'm not sure what comes next, for me, for the club, for any of us. Emma's voice strengthened. But I know you'll be watching, making sure we don't screw it up too badly, making sure the brotherhood you believed in stays true. She pulled something from her pocket, her father's dog tags, the ones he'd kept from Desert Storm, the ones that had started this whole journey. I'm keeping these, to remember, to remind me what you sacrificed, what you believed in. She pressed them against her heart. I love you, Dad. I'll make you proud, I promise. She turned back to the crowd. 500 faces, brothers and sisters who had been enemies a week ago, family now. My father started this club to give veterans a family when they had none. To build brotherhood out of broken pieces. Emma's voice carried across the silent gathering. Morrison tried to destroy that. He almost succeeded. 47 people died because of his lies. She looked at Hammer, at Daniel, at Rachel and her mother, and everyone who had fought to reach this moment. But we're still here, all of us. And as long as we remember what Ghost taught us, that brotherhood matters more than territory, more than power, more than pride, we can rebuild what was broken. She raised her fist. For Ghost. 500 voices answered as one. For Ghost. The engines roared to life. 500 motorcycles. One brotherhood. Riding into a future that Ghost Brennan had died to make possible. Emma took her place at the front of the formation. Behind her, Hammer and Daniel rode side by side. Former enemies, brothers again. Behind them, Rachel and Caroline. Survivors, witnesses, family. Behind them, 500 riders who had found their way home. The sun set over Pine Valley Road as they rode into the fading light. The war was over. The healing had begun. And somewhere watching over all of them, a ghost smiled. The next months brought trials and testimonies. Morrison was convicted on all counts. Murder, kidnapping, racketeering, conspiracy. The judge sentenced him to 7 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. He was transferred to a maximum security federal prison where he would spend whatever remained of his life. Webb fared no better. His attempted deal fell through when the full scope of his crimes became clear. He received 5 life sentences and was placed in solitary confinement for his own protection. The network Morrison had warned about continued to crumble. Agent Wells led a task force that identified and arrested 17 other corrupted officials across 3 states. Ghost's files proved invaluable. Each name, each date, each connection helping investigators map the entire conspiracy. Emma testified at 4 different trials. Each time she told the same story. Each time the truth grew stronger. Each time another piece of Morrison's empire collapsed. On the first anniversary of her father's death, Emma returned to his workshop. She was 18 now, high school behind her, college ahead, a future she was only beginning to imagine. The workshop looked the same tools, same workbench, same smell of motor oil and memories. But something had changed. She had changed. "Hey, Dad." She sat on the old stool where she'd found the box a year ago, where this whole journey had started. "Big day tomorrow. First day of college. Criminology major, if you can believe it." She laughed softly. "Agent Wells helped me get into the program. Says I've got a future in law enforcement. Told her I'd rather take down corrupt law enforcement, and she said that's even better." She pulled out his dog tags. Still wore them every day. "Hammer and Daniel are doing good. The club is strong. They're running legitimate businesses now. The motorcycle shop you and Hammer started is back up and running. Making money, helping veterans." She smiled. "Your dream day. Finally real." She stood, walked around the workshop, touching things he'd touched, remembering. "Rachel's getting better, slowly. She has good days and bad days. But she's free. She's with family. She's healing." Emma paused. "She talks about you all the time. Says you were the bravest man she ever knew." I told her she was wrong. She turned to face the empty room. "You weren't brave, Dad. You were terrified. Every day for 15 years you were terrified that Morrison would find out what you were doing, that he'd hurt us, that everything you built would fall apart." Her voice strengthened. "But you did it anyway. That's not bravery. That's something better, something stronger. You showed me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway." She picked up a wrench from his workbench, held it like he used to hold it. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing what you did, finding truth, exposing corruption, making sure people like Morrison can never hurt innocent families again." She set the wrench down. "That's your legacy, Dad. Not just bringing down one monster, teaching your daughter how to fight all of them." The door opened behind her. Her mother stood there, keys in hand. "Ready to go? You don't want to be late for orientation?" "Yeah, just saying goodbye." Caroline crossed the room, stood beside her daughter in the space her husband had loved. "He'd be so proud of you." "I know. So am I, proud and terrified in equal measure." Caroline smiled. "Every time you testify, every time you put yourself out there, I'm scared something will happen, that someone will try to hurt you like they hurt him." "I know, Mom, but I also know I can't stop you. You're Ghost's daughter. You're going to fight the world, whether I like it or not." Caroline pulled her into a hug. "Just promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come home." "I promise." They stood there for a moment. Mother and daughter, survivors. Then Emma stepped back. "Let's go. New chapter starting." They walked out of the workshop together. Emma paused at the door, looked back one more time. "Goodbye, Dad. I love you." She closed the door, but she didn't lock it, because she knew she'd be back. Because this place, this workshop, these memories, this legacy would always be part of her. The car started. They pulled out of the driveway, and Emma Brennan drove toward her future carrying her father's truth in her heart and his courage in her soul. The war had been built on a lie, but the peace that followed was built on something stronger. Truth, family, brotherhood, and a 17-year-old girl who faced a room full of killers with nothing but her father's message and refused to back down. Ghost Brennan's legacy lived on, in his daughter, in his family, in the brotherhood he died to restore, and it would never be forgotten.